Listen up, America. What if I told you that every single dollar you're chasing is actually pushing you further away from true wealth? What if the very thing you think will save you money is actually the spiritual test that's breaking you from the inside out? I'm about to blow your mind with something the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius understood 2,000 years ago. But Wall Street doesn't want you to know. This isn't some feel-good prosperity gospel or get-rich-quick scheme. This is the raw, unfiltered truth about why smart, capable Americans are stuck in financial loops that feel like spiritual prison cells. You see, Marcus Aurelius had unlimited wealth and power, yet he wrote in his private journal, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." But here's the kicker. He wasn't talking about being broke. He was talking about something far more dangerous than poverty. The soul-crushing trap of making money your master instead of your servant. Stay with me for the next few minutes because I'm about to reveal the 5 psychological patterns that are secretly sabotaging your financial success, and more importantly, how to break free from the money matrix that's keeping you spiritually bankrupt while chasing paper wealth. The shadow behind your hustle. Here's something that'll make you uncomfortable. Your desire for money isn't really about money at all. It's about a wound so deep you've been running from it your entire life. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. As the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, he had access to infinite wealth. Yet he spent his private moments writing about the dangers of letting external things define your worth. He knew something that modern America has forgotten. When you chase money to fill an inner void, you're not building wealth, you're building a prison. Think about it. Why do you really want money? And don't give me the surface-level answers. The house, the car, the security. Go deeper. What are you hoping money will make you feel safe, important, loved, worthy? See, that's where the trap begins. In ancient Rome, just like in modern America, people believed that external success would heal their internal wounds. But Marcus Aurelius discovered the brutal truth. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He was talking about the unconscious patterns that drive us. Here's what's happening in your brain right now. Every time you think about money, you're not just thinking about dollars. You're triggering every childhood memory about safety, every family story about worth, every cultural message about success. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. So when your bank account feels low, your body responds like you're being chased by a lion. But here's where it gets really twisted. Most Americans are carrying inherited money trauma and don't even know it. Maybe your grandparents lived through the Great Depression. Maybe your parents fought about money every night after dinner. Maybe you were praised only when you achieved something. These aren't just memories, they're active programs running in your subconscious, driving every financial decision you make. This is what Marcus Aurelius called living unconsciously. He wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." But we do the opposite. We're constantly measuring our worth against others' success, constantly performing for approval, constantly abandoning our true selves to chase what we think will make us valuable. The shadow, that's the term for the parts of yourself you've rejected or hidden, doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It drives your life from the background. If you learned that wanting money was greedy, you'll sabotage every opportunity to earn more. If you learn that money equals safety, you'll hoard it even when you have plenty. If you learn that rich people are bad, you'll unconsciously resist wealth even while consciously chasing it. Marcus Aurelius faced this shadow daily. Despite having unlimited power, he constantly reminded himself not to let external things corrupt his inner peace. He knew that the real battle wasn't in conquering territories, it was in conquering the unconscious patterns that could turn him into a tyrant. Here's the uncomfortable truth about American culture. We've turned money into our god, and then we wonder why we feel spiritually bankrupt. We've created a society where your net worth determines your self-worth, where your income defines your identity, where your bank account balance reflects your value as a human being. But your soul knows better. That's why you can hit your income goals and still feel empty. That's why you can upgrade your lifestyle and still feel anxious. That's why you can achieve everything you thought you wanted and still feel like something's missing. Marcus Aurelius would tell you that this emptiness isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's your psyche's way of telling you that you're looking for wholeness in all the wrong places. The restlessness you feel isn't failure, it's your soul refusing to be satisfied with counterfeit fulfillment. The first step to financial freedom isn't budgeting or investing or side hustles. It's getting brutally honest about what you're really chasing when you chase money. Because until you heal that wound, no amount of external wealth will ever feel like enough. And that's just the beginning of this psychological rabbit hole, the golden cage of success. Let's say you make it. You hit your income goals. Your lifestyle improves. People start noticing. You're living the American dream, right, wrong, about to enter the most dangerous phase of the money game, the phase where success becomes your prison. Marcus Aurelius knew this trap intimately. As emperor, he had achieved the ultimate success by Roman standards. Yet he wrote, "Remember that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Why would the most successful man in the world write such things? Because he understood what modern America has forgotten. External achievement without inner alignment is spiritual suicide. Here's what happens when you finally make it. And this is where most Americans get trapped. You start getting applause for a version of yourself that isn't really you. People praise your success, your hustle, your achievement. But they're not praising you, they're praising your performance. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin abandoning the parts of yourself that don't perform well. The playful part of you, gone. There's no time for that when you're building an empire. The sensitive part of you, hidden vulnerability, doesn't look good on LinkedIn. The questioning part of you, silenced doubt, doesn't fit the success narrative. The real, messy, human part of you, buried under layers of productivity and optimization. This is what I call the golden cage. You're successful but trapped, wealthy but spiritually bankrupt, respected but deeply disconnected from your authentic self. Marcus Aurelius described this perfectly. How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. But when you're successful, everyone is looking at what you do. The pressure to maintain the image becomes suffocating. American culture makes this worse because we worship at the altar of achievement. We tell stories about people who sacrificed everything for success, and we call them heroes. But what we don't talk about is the cost. The relationships strained, the health compromised, the inner peace destroyed, the authentic self lost in the pursuit of external validation. Here's where it gets really psychological. Once you start getting rewards for your mask, removing it feels terrifying. What if people see the real you and you're not impressive anymore? What if you show vulnerability and people lose respect? What if you admit you're struggling and your success story crumbles? So you double down on the performance. You work longer, hours to maintain the image. You say yes to opportunities that drain you because they look good on paper. You curate your social media to show only the highlight reel. You become a prisoner of your own success, trapped in a role that's slowly killing your soul. Marcus Aurelius faced this exact pressure. As emperor, he was expected to be strong, decisive, perfect, but in his private writings, he revealed his struggles, his doubts, his humanity. He understood that true strength comes not from maintaining a perfect image, but from staying connected to your authentic self, despite external pressure. The irony is crushing. We chase financial freedom, but success often makes us less free than when we started. We work to buy freedom, but end up selling our souls to maintain our lifestyle. We hustle for independence, but become dependent on others' approval to maintain our self-worth. This is why so many successful Americans are secretly miserable. They've achieved everything society told them would make them happy, yet they feel more anxious, more isolated, more disconnected than ever. They're rich in dollars but poor in spirit, wealthy in assets but bankrupt in authenticity. But here's what Marcus Aurelius understood that most people miss. This crisis isn't a failure, it's an invitation. The emptiness you feel at the top isn't punishment for your success, it's your psyche calling you home to yourself. The anxiety that comes with achievement isn't weakness, it's wisdom, your inner voice telling you that something essential is missing. The spiritual test of money isn't whether you can make it, it's whether you can make it without losing yourself in the process. Can you achieve without becoming attached to achievement? Can you succeed without sacrificing your soul? Can you build wealth while staying rooted in your truth? Most Americans never even ask these questions because they're too busy climbing the ladder to notice it's leaning against the wrong wall. But you're different. You're here, questioning, listening, ready to break free from the golden cage. The childhood stories running your bank account. Here's a truth that'll make you squirm. Your relationship with money was decided before you ever held a dollar bill. Every financial decision you make as an adult is being controlled by a child's understanding of safety, worth, and survival. Marcus Aurelius understood this concept deeply. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But here's what he meant. Until you understand the unconscious programming running your financial life, you don't have power over anything. You're just a puppet dancing to childhood melodies you can't even hear. Let me paint you a picture that might hit close to home. Maybe you grew up in a house where money was scarce, where every dollar was precious, where your parents fought about finances after they thought you were asleep. Or maybe you grew up comfortable but heard constant messages about money being the root of all evil or rich people being greedy. Perhaps you were only praised when you achieved something, when you brought home good grades or won competitions. These aren't just memories, they're active programs running your financial operating system right now. That anxiety you feel when your bank account gets low, that's not adult logic. That's your inner child remembering when money meant survival. That guilt you feel when you spend on yourself, that's not financial wisdom. That's old programming about being selfish or unworthy. The brutal truth is that most Americans are making money decisions based on a 5-year-old's understanding of the world. We're running sophisticated businesses and investment portfolios with the emotional intelligence of a child who once heard their parents fighting about bills. Marcus Aurelius had to confront his own inherited patterns. Born into privilege, he could have easily become another entitled Roman aristocrat, but he chose to examine his unconscious biases, his inherited beliefs, his automatic reactions. He knew that unconscious patterns don't serve truth, they serve survival. Here's where it gets really twisted. These childhood money stories create what psychologists call financial behaviors, unconscious patterns that sabotage your success even when you consciously want to succeed. Maybe you're a brilliant entrepreneur who somehow always ends up broke. Maybe you're incredibly capable but can never seem to charge what you're worth. Maybe you make good money but spend it all, keeping yourself in a cycle of financial stress. These aren't character flaws, they're survival strategies your psyche developed to keep you safe according to a child's logic. If you learned that having money made people leave, maybe your successful parent was never around. You'll unconsciously sabotage wealth to avoid abandonment. If you learned that wanting money was bad, maybe your family was religious and talked about money being evil. You'll feel guilty every time you try to earn more. The American dream is built on the myth that anyone can make it if they just work hard enough. But that completely ignores the psychological reality. If your unconscious mind believes that success is dangerous, no amount of hard work will create lasting wealth. You'll find ways to sabotage yourself every time you get close. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." But most people are thinking with thoughts that aren't even their own. They're thinking with inherited beliefs, family patterns, cultural programming that was downloaded before they could consciously choose. Here's what this looks like in real life. You might consciously want $1 million business, but unconsciously believe that rich people are greedy, so you price your services too low. You might consciously want financial freedom, but unconsciously believe that struggling is noble, so you resist opportunities that feel too easy. You might consciously want wealth, but unconsciously believe you don't deserve it, so you spend everything you make. The shadow side of money isn't just personal, it's generational. Your great-grandmother's fear during the Great Depression might be influencing your investment decisions today. Your grandfather's shame about being poor might be driving your workaholism right now. Your parents' arguments about money might be creating your relationship conflicts around finances. But here's the liberating truth. Marcus Aurelius discovered, once you make the unconscious conscious, once you see the patterns clearly, they lose their power over you. You can't change what you can't see, but once you see it, everything changes. The child's voice that's been running your financial life can finally be heard, understood, and healed, breaking free from the money matrix. Now we get to the part that separates the tourists from the travelers, how to actually break free from the psychological prison that's been running your financial life. This isn't about positive thinking or vision boards. This is about radical transformation at the deepest level of your being. Marcus Aurelius didn't just philosophize about freedom, he lived it. Despite having unlimited wealth and power, he remained unattached to both. He understood something that modern Americans desperately need to learn. True financial freedom isn't about having enough money to buy anything you want. It's about being free from the compulsive need to want Here's where most financial advice fails you completely. It focuses on the symptoms, your bank account balance, instead of the disease. Your unconscious relationship with worth and safety. You can learn all the investment strategies and business tactics in the world, but if you're still operating from wounded childhood programming, you'll find ways to sabotage every success. The first step to real financial freedom is what Marcus Aurelius called knowing thyself, but not the surface-level knowing, the deep, uncomfortable kind of knowing. You need to get brutally honest about what money represents to you beyond its practical function. Start here. When you imagine having enough money, what feeling are you actually chasing? Safety, freedom, respect, love, power, control. Be specific, because your psyche is incredibly literal. If what you really want is to feel safe, no amount of money will ever be enough, because money can't actually provide emotional safety. Only you can do that. Marcus Aurelius mastered this principle. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. He wasn't promoting poverty. He was pointing to the dangerous trap of seeking internal states through external means. Here's the practical work. You need to heal your relationship with money before you try to make more of it. This means having conversations with the wounded parts of yourself that are driving your financial decisions. It means recognizing when you're operating from fear versus wisdom. It means catching yourself when you're performing for approval instead of creating from authenticity. American culture makes this harder because we're surrounded by messages that more is always better, that financial success equals personal worth, that your bank account balance reflects your value as a human being. But Marcus Aurelius would tell you that these are exactly the kind of external judgments that corrupt your inner peace. The revolutionary approach is this. Instead of chasing money to feel valuable, become valuable first. Instead of working for external validation, validate yourself internally. Instead of seeking security through accumulation, find security through self-knowledge. This isn't spiritual bypassing, it's practical psychology. Here's what changes when you heal your money story. You stop making decisions from desperation and start making them from clarity. You stop saying yes to opportunities that drain you just because they pay well. You stop undercharging because you finally understand your worth isn't negotiable. You stop overworking because you're no longer trying to earn your right to exist. But here's the part that will blow your mind. When you stop chasing money compulsively, you often start making more of it. Why? Because desperation repels opportunity. Because authentic confidence attracts the right people. Because when you're not emotionally attached to outcomes, you make better strategic decisions. Marcus Aurelius understood that the highest form of wealth is inner freedom, the ability to be content, regardless of external circumstances, while simultaneously being capable of creating material abundance when needed. This isn't about being passive or giving up on financial goals. It's about approaching those goals from a place of wholeness, instead of woundedness. The practical steps are simple but not easy. Question every financial belief you inherited. Notice when you're operating from fear versus wisdom. Catch yourself when you're performing for money instead of creating value. Heal the relationship with the parts of yourself that learned money equals worth. Practice making decisions from your authentic truth instead of external pressure. This is the money matrix most Americans are trapped in, believing that external wealth will heal internal wounds, that financial success will prove their worth, that accumulating more will finally make them feel secure. But Marcus Aurelius knew the secret. Real wealth flows to those who are already whole. The soul-aligned path to wealth. Here's the final piece that transforms everything. How to create wealth that feeds your soul instead of feeding on it. This is where Marcus Aurelius' wisdom becomes your competitive advantage in a world full of people hustling from their wounds. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire not through force alone, but through alignment with his deepest values. He wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential." This wasn't about being lazy. This was about the incredible power that comes from focusing your energy on what truly matters. Most Americans are scattered, chasing every opportunity, saying yes to everything that might make money, exhausting themselves, trying to succeed at everything instead of excelling at what they're uniquely designed for. But soul-aligned wealth works differently. It's about depth, not breadth, quality, not quantity, alignment, not grinding. Here's what nobody tells you about making money from your authentic truth. It's actually easier than making money from performance, but it requires something most people aren't willing to do: face who you really are, beneath all the conditioning, expectations, and inherited programming. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his private thoughts, he wasn't performing for anyone. He was connecting with his essential nature, his core values, his deepest wisdom, and that connection became his greatest source of power. Not power over others, but power with life, power that flows naturally instead of being forced. The soul-aligned approach to wealth starts with this question: what am I uniquely here to contribute? Not what makes the most money, or what looks impressive, but what gift am I carrying that the world needs? When you answer this question honestly, everything changes. Here's why this approach works. Authentic value creation is magnetic. When you're offering something that flows from your genuine gifts, people can feel the difference. They can sense that you're not performing for their money. You're sharing something real, something that matters, something that comes from your core. But let's get practical, because spiritual concepts without practical application are just pretty ideas. Soul-aligned wealth creation has 3 non-negotiable principles that Marcus Aurelius embodied. First, know your values and let them guide every decision. Not your goals, your values. Goals change, but values are your North Star. If freedom is your highest value, don't build a business that requires you to be available 24/7. If creativity is essential to you, don't take jobs that crush your creative spirit just for a paycheck. When your actions align with your values, you tap into a source of energy that feels effortless. Second, serve something bigger than yourself. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule just for personal power. He saw himself as serving the greater good of Rome. When your work serves something beyond your personal gain, it connects you to a flow of abundance that transcends individual effort. Money stops being the goal and becomes a byproduct of meaningful contribution. Third, trust the process over forcing outcomes. This is where most Americans struggle, because our culture worships control. But Marcus Aurelius understood that true power comes from doing your best work and then releasing attachment to specific results. When you're not desperately grasping for outcomes, you make clearer decisions, take better risks, and attract opportunities you couldn't have forced. Here's what soul-aligned wealth looks like in practice. You wake up energized because your work feeds you instead of draining you. You charge what you're worth because you understand the value of your authentic gifts. You attract clients and opportunities that resonate with your truth, instead of settling for whoever will pay you. You make money in ways that feel sustainable, not frantic. But here's the secret sauce Marcus Aurelius knew. When you're aligned with your essential nature, abundance flows through you, not to you. You become a conduit for value creation rather than a desperate seeker of external validation. Money becomes a tool for expressing your highest self rather than a substitute for self-worth. The path to soul-aligned wealth isn't always linear, and it's rarely fast, but it's sustainable, fulfilling, and ultimately more profitable than the hustle and approach, because it's built on something unshakable: your authentic truth. Marcus Aurelius left us the blueprint. Confine yourself to the present. Stop chasing phantom futures where money will finally make you happy. Start creating from where you are, with who you are, for what matters most. That's where real wealth begins, not in your bank account, but in your willingness to show up as your essential self in a world that profits from your performance. The question isn't whether you can afford to take this path. The question is, can you afford not to?